right, welcome everybody to the small business interview series. Today I've got Eli Wolff with me, art
Hello.
person extraordinaire. So Eli, tell me a little bit about your art and what you do and why people should come see you. I'm going to scroll through a couple of your pictures.
Sure. Well, at its core, I'm an artist that creates what I call funny and weird lowbrow artwork. And primarily, I use acrylic paints to make art that I have in coffee shops, bars, and galleries around mostly the Seattle area. I've been starting to get my art into Tacoma, Everett, and even up to Anacortes. And I also like to, go to a lot of comic conventions and, get my art in front of people there as far as like affordable art prints, stickers and magnets.
Well, and being able to do those kinds of events is nice because it really speaks, your kind of art speaks to the comic book kind of people, I think, so.
Yeah, exactly. I love pop culture. Everything about pop culture, from movies to cartoons to video games. It's all inspiring to me. So my paintings definitely reflect my, basically I'll take something I find funny or interesting, and then I'll try to make it even funnier or something you wouldn't expect to see. It's just, yeah, I have a hard time just consuming entertainment. I always want to try to be a part of the world of entertainment.
Well, I love how you do the mashups. I've got a couple pictures in here I'll share that are a couple of my very favorite ones. How did you get into art and what's your background?
Well, I've just naturally been, interested in drawing mostly since I was a little kid. My family has a tradition of artists, going back to my grandmother. She was a sign designer back in the 50s in Seattle. So she worked on designing a lot of the classic neon signs. Some of them are still around. Her most famous was the Pink Elephant Car Wash.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I kind of have that in my genes. Yeah. So she really pushed me into, giving me art supplies and stuff when I was little. So, but by the time I was starting to think about doing a career, I was trying to become an animator initially. I really wanted to work, on movies or maybe video games. But after working on animation for 4 or 5 years and not really getting super good at it, I discovered there's this kind of scene called lowbrow art or pop surrealism. And I kind of discovered that through magazines like Juxtapose or High Fructose. And those magazines are full of just amazing art that's really, really fun. It's kind of like cartoony, but makes you, it's like well rendered, but it's cartoony. And that was around 2010. And my first art show was about 2011. And I just got so inspired to start painting. I've just been, pretty much doing that all the time when I have free time. And I've been selling my art since 2012. So as a small business now, this is my kind of 4th year attempting to do that.
Well, you've been doing a good job. I've been following you around, as you know, for a few years. So it's been fun to see everything progress and see your art progress too. I was going to ask you, what do you think is your kind of typical audience?
Well, I mean, my audience, it seems super random. When I do a convention, and people come up to my booth, sometimes I get repeat customers, but mostly it's just new people. And I say that the main thing is having a similar sense of humor as me, since my art mostly is about making you laugh. If you don't, get the reference I'm using or understand why it's silly, you're not going to really like the art. But if you find it funny like I do, you're probably going to love it. I grew up on stuff like Garbage Pail Kids or Mad Magazine. Mm-hmm. And so some people might consider that kind of low art, but I find it hilarious and I love that kind of stuff. I really love puns. I really love just dumb, wacky stuff. So I guess that would be my typical client, is somebody who is like me.
Well, I'm showing up here. I forgot what you call him, the C-3PO.
Oh, yeah, the C-3PO there. That's the pink droid.
Pink droid, yeah. There you go. And then, of course, I had to pick one that was for holiday season since we've got that coming up. What's the name of that one?
So that one's just a Grumpy Christmas. I mean, everybody knows that internet meme of the Grumpy Cat.
Yeah.
So and so I just, it's Seattle and it usually rains at Christmas. So that's kind of how, I think a lot of people here kind of feel. You don't get super, festive. I mean, it's nice when it snows. You feel more like, oh, it's really the holidays. But I thought Grumpy Cat would look perfect under an umbrella in Seattle.
It's a little more typical for Seattle.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed that you've just started getting into is this, I don't know what you call it, but where you take a real picture and you add in art. And I'm just loving this one. This one's so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's been a thing that I was inspired by something I saw on the internet. I think it's an artist out of New York who's I think was the first person to start getting popular doing it. They would take pictures on the subway and then they would add monsters to it. And I thought that was cool. So I had an iPad and I ride the bus to work. So I started taking pictures and doodling. And now what I do is when I'm out camping or something, like this one in particular, it was out, in the woods and that fence was busted. So I took a picture of it. And then I just got on the bus and I just started doodling. And that's the creature that ended up coming through the fence.
I love it. He looks a little scary, but I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of horror movies. I mean, I try not to make my art gruesome, but I do like drawing things that are, like monsters. I love fangs, dragons, claws, stuff like that. So if I don't know what to draw, like if I'm just doodling without a plan, it usually ends up looking like a monster.
Well, I'm a personal fan of dragons, so I had to pull this one. It's my very favorite image of all of the ones that you've done.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's a classic. I think that goes back to like 2012. So
yeah.
At this point, I consider that one of my first paintings.
It's still one of my favorite ones. And it's R2D20. All of those nerds out there. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Star Wars, and I could probably do nothing but Star Wars fan art, but I try not to limit myself to just kind of doing one thing. And like these two pictures is a good example of sometimes I'll use a really recognizable pop culture thing, and sometimes I'll just make something up. And I try to, constantly be balancing back and forth because I love pop culture so much, but I also want to try to push my own creativity to invent characters that didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. The last thing I just wanted to ask you about is what kind of upcoming things you have. I saw this one upcoming art event that you have December 15th here in the Seattle area.
Yeah, that's going to be at a little art gallery in Edmonds called Other Worlds. The opening is going to run from 5 to 8 p.m. on December 15th during the Edmonds Art Walk. So I'll be there for a couple hours, hanging out, meeting people. I've got a lot of original paintings for sale, plus some prints of some of my popular stuff. That show is going to be at that gallery. It's also a shop that sells really cool steampunk stuff. So if any of your audience is into steampunk, it's a cool shop to check out. The show will be up for 2 months, so it'll be through December and January.
Nice.
Other things coming up in December, on December 10th, I'm going to have a lot of my smaller original paintings at this event called the Art Under $100. That's at the Seattle Design Center in Georgetown. So if you just Google Art Under 100 Seattle, you'll find it. It's a really fun event.
We'll put a link to it too in the comments for people to really find it.
Okay. And then the other thing coming up in December, December 22nd, for the last minute shoppers, I'm going to be at an event called the Punk Rock Flea Market. That goes on this time. It's at the Old Value Village building up on Capitol Hill.
Oh.
So that's a really fun event. I've done it a few years now, and it's just a bunch of random stuff that people are selling, everything from, old clothing up to, weird art like what I make.
Yeah, Punk Rock Flea Market is one of my favorite events because there's so many different things that you can find in the typical Christmas boutiques.
Exactly.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put a link to your, you have an Etsy page, I think, and then your Facebook page, and then a couple of these upcoming events, and then people can go there to your website to find some of those other upcoming events. But I'm super excited for you. I'm really glad to see things have progressed so well and that we're getting to interview you today.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to interview me. I'm just as excited as anybody to see where my art goes next, because for me, each new painting is kind of me trying to learn to get better. I mean, I didn't really go to art school. All my art is just through a lot of practice. And when people ask me like, oh, how do you do that? I'm like, well, I draw an hour every night. How often do you draw? And a lot of people that say they can't draw just don't put in the time. So
yeah, it all comes down to practice.
Yeah, if anybody out there wants to become an artist, it's never too late, but you got to get the 10,000 bad drawings out of your system first. And the only way to do that is to draw them. So.
Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention, speaking of drawing, you have your coloring books out there too, right?
I do. Yeah, those they're pretty limited right now. I only made a few of them, but in fact, just this afternoon, I'm going to go down to my local print shop and see if I can get some more printed up. Generally, but when I do a new thing, I only print a few just to see if there's any interest. That's kind of like, you know, one of my business things is to try to be really cautious about how much inventory I have. But yeah, the coloring books are kind of a new thing. I'll probably have a few of those with me at the Art Under 100 event, and if I don't sell out of them there, I'll have some at the punk rock flea market also.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Eli, for joining me. I really appreciate you taking your time today, and thanks everyone for joining us for the Small Business Interview Series. Check back often. We'll be posting up videos all throughout the season and into the new year, and all kinds of small businesses from all different genres, so that you're going to find something interesting to you for sure. Thanks a lot for joining us, everyone, and see you later, Eli.
All right, thanks a lot. See you later. Happy holidays.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.